Welcome to the Afterlife podcast. This is your host, Pooja Chilukuri. I'm very excited to introduce my guest today, Dorena Kohrs. She is also my friend, and that is why I'm very excited to have this conversation with her today. Dorena is better known as the Space Doula, and she has spent nearly 2 decades exploring the fusion of feng shui, space clearing, and intuitive coaching to shift the momentum in people's lives. She helps shift the energy within their homes, bringing alignment to themselves, their family, and their careers. She's a certified practitioner of interior alignment, clutter clearing coach, and a soul coaching practitioner. Her work has been featured in Better Homes and Garden, Yoga Journal, and she has spoken in conferences and podcasts, including Hay House Radio and Unity Radio, the Linn Academy, and annual conference of National Association of Productivity and Organizing Professionals. And she is here with us today. We have a lot to unpack in this conversation. We're going to be talking about not just clearing the energy in your home and shifting patterns in your life, but Dorina is also going to walk us a little bit to break down that word manifestation, which is so popular in spiritual circles. And if we have time, I would love to pick her brain a little bit on the soul coaching collage. So thank you, Dorina, and welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course, we've been friends, and I've also been very blessed by some of the services that you have shared with me, Dorina. And I really wanted to bring you on because in this show, we talk a lot about not just exploring spiritual realms through the near death experience stories, through out of body experiences, and other stories of folks that have had supernatural and mystical experiences. All that said, I think sometimes our life here on this earth is miraculous and mysterious. And one of the things I've discovered working with you that was very magical for me is shifting the patterns in my home. It really did make a difference in my life. So I wanted to bring you on to discuss some of those things. We talk about unconditional love and interconnectedness when I'm interviewing my guests that have left their bodies and that was their common experience. So, my first question to you, apart from wanting to know how you got on this journey, so it's a two-part question. How did you get on this journey? And what can we do in our home to support that feeling of unconditional love?
Okay. So my journey's been well, I say circuitous, but maybe it really hasn't. It's just a continued evolution. I often say that I was born into this work. For those who are familiar with astrology, I have my sun sign is Cancer, my rising sign is Cancer. I have Cancer in Mercury and Jupiter. So there's a whole lot of Cancerian nurturing, like those of us under the sign of Cancer just love homes and, connectedness and just all that feeling good and a lot of emotions as well. So I've always been super attached to my home from the time I was a little girl. And I grew up, my early years were fairly chaotic, and some trauma because of my parents and with my parents. And I was in my room a lot. And so I naturally moved my furniture around and I never knew why, but I always wanted to change things. And I think I was constantly looking for using my space to feel better. And so I've done that my entire life. It's how does my space feel and how can I feel better when my space feels better? Fast forward through the first couple of decades of my life, and I graduated college. I always wanted to be an interior designer, and I said, but I'm not creative enough. I can't do that. And so I went into corporate. I worked for American Express for years. And then I stayed home with when my first two were born. I stayed home with them. And then fast forward a little bit more time, and I had the opportunity to leave my corporate job and I became a decorator or a partner in a small decorating company. And so I literally walked in, not with any experience, and it was somebody who needed more physical help in her decorating business. So I moved the furniture, and I climbed ladders and painted. And so just had a blast doing that. When my partner moved, I was like, well, I can't continue this. I'm not creative. So I still had that, like, I'm not creative feeling. So I turned my business into professional organizing, which is that thing that I just intuitively, naturally, my moon is in Virgo, again, pointing to the astrology. So I'm very adept in arranging and organizing. So I did that. And then I got super frustrated because I was like, people just want their things to look pretty. And I was like, it's not about looking pretty. Like I knew that it was about how things felt. And so I added on to my business a certification in clutter clearing. And um, that helped me understand a little bit more why people were hanging on to things. But still, I was like, how can I help people see what influence their things are having? And that's when I dove into feng shui. I had studied it just for fun, like years and years prior. And I remember sitting in my feng shui training and exploring the Bagua map, which in feng shui is an energy map, and it shows you what area of your home is associated with what area of your life. And all of a sudden, I was like, oh, I have a tool to help people see the energy of their things, why they're holding on to it, most importantly, because so much in our space is familiar and we don't think about it. We live in our space. Sometimes we don't change anything for the longest time. And we keep evolving, but our space doesn't evolve. It doesn't catch up with us. And so here was this tool that I had in feng shui where I could help people see the subconscious of the patterns in their life and how they were playing out in their homes. And then once we could see those patterns, they're not subconscious anymore. Then they're conscious, and then we can make a different choice. So that's kind of my evolution in the realm of homes.
Definitely, Dorena. And I remember the first time when you introduced the Bagua map to me, I was fascinated. I mean, I had never heard of, spaces holding energy that corresponded to areas of our life. And I have to be very honest with you, I came in with some percentage of skepticism because I had
Mhm.
never, heard about this. And but because I trusted you, I went with it. And after staying with your program for a whole year, I just understood, what a tremendous shift that. So to me, it was also therapeutic because it wasn't just diving into my home. I think the value that I got from it was diving into myself and identifying patterns. So can you speak a little bit to how you think that the patterns that we have uh, is showing up in our home or vice versa?
Yeah, it's all like everything's connected, everything is connected. And so those experiences we have in our life, the self-limiting beliefs, sometimes the trauma, that all plays out. A lot of times it's subconscious, right? We don't realize that we're responding in certain ways because of conditioning, because past experiences. And so we respond in those ways, and then it plays out in our home because we make choices based upon our experiences and our feelings. And when you bring this lens of feng shui and when I can come objectively and look at somebody's space, because when you're in it day to day, you don't see it as much. But when I can come in and I can start asking questions, then all of a sudden you can start seeing the correlation. And I'll give you one example. I don't know, it's one of my favorites because it was so quick and so powerful. And it was a client who called me and they wanted their business to expand. They're like, I'm not really being seen in my business. I don't know why it's not taking off. And I was like, all right, well, we'll look at your home. So it's like we live the question through our home, right? So we have this question, and his was, why am I not being seen in my business? So I'm looking at his home. And I happen to look at there is one area of your home associated with fame and reputation. It's how you want to be seen in the world. And in this person's home, the furniture was all like shoved against the wall in a way that you or I might walk in and be like, well, that's odd. To him, it was super familiar. It was super like, why wouldn't I? And when I say like shoved against the wall, there was two pieces that overlapped each other. So there's two couches and they overlap so that you couldn't actually sit in one corner. Like it wouldn't be a natural,
Mhm.
like typically you would do a, like two couches or a couch and a love seat at right angles.
Mhm.
But this was like, and so I was like, well, that's odd. Or different, right? So it caught my attention. And so then I can ask the question, and I'm constantly putting puzzle pieces together from somebody's life and their home and then connecting this. And so I said to him, I'm like, so have you felt like a wallflower? Like, because so much was like against the wall, whereas it might be more typical to float in this particular arrangement in the living room to float the furniture out a bit. And I said, do you feel like a wallflower sometimes? He's like, oh my gosh, yes. And he is gay, and he said growing up, he was adopted. And he said, my family loved me. But they also said when he came out, like, can we not tell everybody? Can we just like keep that
Mhm.
between us? And so he grew up with this feeling of really not being able to fully step into who he is because of his family saying, like, let's just hang back a little bit and not share that. And so that was, but that was as a child. And then he grew up and I don't he's probably when I talked to him, he was probably in his 40s or so, right? But it's these subconscious beliefs of, oh, I really shouldn't be seen. And we forget, we don't even realize it.
Mhm.
So then what I suggested to him, I'm like, all right, let's change your furniture around. Like, let's shift it. Um, and then when we change the energy of our homes, it impacts us because everything, all the energy around, like we are in that energy. So I can't
Mhm.
help but to feel it. So the next day he texts me and he's like, I have laryngitis. Like he wasn't sick at all. And then all of a sudden had lost his voice, because there's this part of us that's like, oh, wait, I've been found out, right? Like you're going to want me to step up. It doesn't feel safe. But
Mhm.
then he could work through that because it's no longer this conscious
Mhm.
belief. And his business did take off after that. But it was such a fascinating example of how the two really mirror each other.
And it's funny that you should share this story, Dorena, because um, actually something similar happened with me when I was working with you a couple of years ago. I remember we were working in my living room, the fireplace, and it was through your love story program, which was the monthly where we
Mhm.
would all meet and discuss, the different patterns in our lives and in our homes for those that are listening. Um, and I remember we made some changes, and that area of my home was associated with fame and a reputation and how I want to be seen. And I think it
Mhm.
was within that week that my entire website crashed. And I mean, oh my goodness, I called the tech help. I did everything I could and nothing and no one could restore it. I ended up going through a different domain provider and creating a whole new website, which is what I needed at the time. And which is how, I started getting noticed and seen. So these things they appear a little bit esoteric or woo-woo, but I think they also, when I try to peel back the layers, I think there is a pretty good logical explanation as well. Because whenever we're trying to make changes, I think we're telling ourselves that we're aware of the pattern and we're trying to work towards it. It's like wherever your intention, you put your
Right.
intention, and all of a sudden
Mhm.
the energy starts moving. So I think that was also my example. So that was a great one, Dorena, with your other client.
Well, exactly. And so here's the thing, we can't I tend to approach feng shui from a let's look at the metaphors, right? Let's look at how one's mirroring the other. Let's look at the energy because you still have to make a choice, right? So in feng shui, there's oranges are very fortuitous and good luck, right? So I could tell you, oh, put a bowl of oranges, 8 oranges, and 8 in numerology is abundance, and put this bowl of 8 oranges in your kitchen and money's going to flow in. It doesn't happen necessarily so like transactional like that. Um, because you still have to take the steps, right? You can't go and say, oh, I'm just gonna like blow up my credit card and I'm not gonna pay it. I'm gonna go into debt, but I have a bowl of oranges, so it's gonna work. It's just this work allows us to see our lives and see those things that oftentimes we don't realize. There was a woman yesterday I was speaking with, and she was describing her space, and I started asking questions about it. And she was like, I thought I worked on that. I thought I worked on that. And I was like, you did, right? But we're constantly evolving higher and we're seeing things from a different perspective
Mhm,
and a shorter time frame.
mhm,
So it's like the first time you work on something, maybe it took you 2 years, and then it will come around in a different form and it's a little bit shorter and we see it from a different angle.
mhm. I get that, and I love how you said that we're constantly evolving and our awareness is shifting and changing, but many times we don't change our surroundings to reflect that. And that's a great point, Dorina. It's a great point. And speaking of our living spaces and finding the patterns that we want to break and then finding those in our home, also have a question about space clearing
Mhm.
because the energies that hang out, I just wanted to ask you if you have some favorite things that you do to clear your space.
It's such a good question. I get on a little bit of a soapbox about space clearing, because it's very trendy to say, I saged my house. It's just like you hear people say that, I don't know, quite frequently. I have a process that I go by. It's similar to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So, if you're familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it's a pyramid. And what Maslow said is that in the world of psychology, that this base needs at the bottom of the pyramid is our need to feel safe, right? We need food, we need shelter, um, and we can't move up this pyramid unless those needs are fulfilled. So, don't worry about love. Don't worry about belonging, self-actualization if you don't know where your next meal is going to come from or you don't have a roof over your head. But once, that level of needs fulfilled, then you can go up to the next level and the next level. When we look at our homes through that same lens, this bottom part of the pyramid is clutter, right? Clutter is the things we don't love, we don't need, we don't use. Clutter is heavier energy. It could be, and it's not necessarily always the amount. Sometimes it will be like stacks of, papers all over your desk. Like you can't see the surface of your desk. That can be clutter, or maybe piles on the floor. But sometimes clutter can be a letter from your ex that you forgot about that's sitting in the back of your closet, or it could be something given to you by your grandmother, and your grandmother always told you that you weren't enough. It's clutter is more about the energy of something.
Mhm,
A broken toaster oven sitting on your kitchen counter that doesn't work, and you're like, oh, I'll just, I'm just going to keep it here because maybe I'll try to fix it. That's clutter, right? So if we're not using it, we don't love it, we don't need it. If it's bringing our energy down, and so what happens is in the hierarchy of your home, that decluttering is the bottom. And if you go and you say, okay, I'm going to sage my home, and you still have that heavy energy of clutter, anything you do to space clear. So space clearing is energetically clearing a space, clearing the air. Anything we space clear, it's not going to be sustained because the energy is going to be pulled back down by the energy of the clutter.
mhm,
So I always say, so, in terms of tools of space clearing, I'm like, we'll declutter first, right? Like it's the first step. And you don't have to do like your whole home. You can do this in smaller increments. Like you could do this process in your office, right? So the first thing you want to do is declutter, get rid of those things. Um, and then you want to clean, right? So energy likes to cling to heavier energy, like dust. I'm sorry, energy likes to cling to dust.
mhm,
And so when we dust and we clean the floors and really, and that's like you mentioned, I don't think I answered the question about unconditional love. Like when we clean a space, we're honoring it, we're loving it. And so
mhm,
what we pour into our home comes back to us.
mhm,
So as you're cleaning, like cleaning the windows, and as a side note, in feng shui, your windows are the eyes of your home. It helps with your being able to see out perspective, which is, we like woo woo maybe, but it's logical, right? Like, can you see out your window to see what's coming towards you, or are they have fingerprints all over? Are they covered with a shrub? Um, so that's the cleaning piece. And then we can organize, right? So now you have a space that's decluttered, it's clean, and then you can put things in logical, organized way. And then we can look at some more feng shui and make sure how things are arranged flow well, right? Because if you have a lot of things shoved in a corner too tight, the energy can't flow around. The energy is going to get stuck. There might be certain colors we want to bring in. Maybe we want to bring in a plant. Maybe we want to bring in a fountain or a candle. And once those steps are done, then we can say, okay, now we can clear, whether it's with sound or smoke. Um, and then the energy is going to be sustained. It's not going to be just this quick fix of, I'm going to sage my house and I'm all good. But I can tell you the tools,
Mhm.
um, and actually answer your question that I get off my soapbox about it now. But so sound, I prefer to use sound than smoke, because I don't like setting off people's smoke detectors. And then some people don't like the smell of sage, or Palo Santo is another one. Like, they're beautiful ways to clear, but for me, sound is a little bit
Mhm.
safer,
Yeah.
and again, if you have allergies or don't particularly like the smell. And sound can be your hands. You can literally clap, and
Mhm.
you can clap with the intention that you're breaking up energy, and you really just want to clap the perimeters of a room. So you can walk into a room and you can be clapping all the way around the room to break up that heavier energy. You
Mhm.
can use bells, drums. I've got a beautiful crystal pyramid. Um, and that's always with intention, right? What energy are we clearing? What energy do we want to bring in?
Mhm.
And then smoke. Those would be the two big ones. The
And
sound.
the And those are very doable. I'm glad they're not like something very hard, right? Because I remember once when I was working with you, you had me play some like music, and I remember
Oh,
that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah,
So
so anything like, and I'm glad you said that because I didn't even think about that now, is anything can clear the air, like literally playing music, and you don't even have to be in the house. So if you leave your home and leave some music playing, because words matter, and what like the vibration of it is literally in your walls. Just like if you are, if you go out and go to, I don't know, someplace where there's an argument happening, or in a very crowded kind of big box store, and you can feel that heavy energy and you walk out of it, you'll be like, oh, I feel better. Saying like like words matter, the energy around you matters. And so just playing beautiful music, not like maybe something with like some hard music with, words that are not like
yeah,
super loving, but playing music in your space can help. Lighting a candle can help. Opening the door, like
yeah,
literally opening your front door. It's the mouth of chi. It's where energy comes into your home. It's like your home's mouth, like how it gets air,
yeah,
how it gets oxygen. So literally opening your door in the morning, because a lot of us use our back door, our garage door, but don't open our front door. So that can help bring
yeah.
fresh energy in.
Yes, and those are all very awesome and very easy to do. And I have started opening my front door more after working with you, Dorena, and it does make a difference. It's not, it moves the fresh air, there's energy, but there's also this feeling of, to me, when I open my front door now, I'm welcoming with intention,
Mhm.
divine energy. Like that's my intention when I open the front door in the morning. So we could put any intention that we want, right? To create the energy that we want. And so bringing back to that, because one of my curiosities, with all these folks that I've been interviewing with the near-death experiences, they always talk about this deep unconditional love, this
Mhm.
feeling of connectedness. And whenever I'm listening to them, I just feel like, can we be still in our bodies and get to experience like a little bit of that, right?
Mhm.
I know meditation, a lot of people do that, but I think from what I've heard you before, Dorena, that there are ways when we're supporting the right energy or the right mood in our home that we could experience this, right?
I think so. It's that heaven on earth, right? Like I believe, I mean, it's my mission, right? Because I feel like literally one home at a time. Like when we uplift the energy in each one of our homes, we are surrounded by that.
Mm-hmm.
And we absorb that energy and then we walk out into the world. And if each one of us walks out into the world with a little bit more love, like imagine what that is.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of walking into your home and feeling drained, right? Feeling like heavy of like, ugh. And so this is the unconditional love part. Like, are you holding on to things because oh, I can't let go of that because I made a mistake buying it and I feel bad. Like that's not, you know, on the other side, I don't think there's that judgment and the shame and like all that goes away. And so here we are in a space, like start thinking about your belongings, start looking around and being like, where's judgment of myself sitting in this space? Where am I like, oh, I bought that dress and I thought I liked it and I don't like it. And I spent a lot of money, so I can't let it go. Like the guilt in there and the judgment of ourselves that I made a mistake. It's like, don't hold on to that energy
Mm-hmm.
or the just in case, the fear, like asking yourself, where's fear showing up in my home?
Mm-hmm.
And so my husband and I have had, you know, he had some experiences in his family where there was money one day and not the next,
Mm-hmm.
and so then, and he was the youngest, so there were things that he wasn't able to do because things dramatically shifted financially. And so that kind of has carried over. And so we had some extra wood from like maybe the deck that, it's like, well, no, we need to keep that. We need to keep that. We need to keep this like, because what happens if, or people keep like medical devices, because like I might need that again. And I'm like, but then we're attracting the energy of
Mm-hmm.
I might need those crutches. I'm like, I don't want to live
Mm-hmm.
with that intention
Mm-hmm.
around me that I might need
Mm-hmm.
a negative thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really looking at our space and saying, how do I bring in the unconditional love? And again, it's always starting with the decluttering is like, like I mentioned a letter earlier. I had my dad, um, when I was probably late teens, like
Mm-hmm.
early, probably late teens still, maybe 18, 19, wrote me a letter and he wasn't in his best self at the time. It was 8 pages of telling me what a horrible person I was. Like it was, you did this and you did this. And I was
Mm-hmm.
just like, and I was such a good kid. And I was like, and I kept it. And I would take that letter out periodically because it was in a box and it was up in my closet. And every once in a while, I'd see the letter and I would take it out and read it and be like, yeah, that's what he thought of me. Until one day I was like, this isn't mine, right? Like, why am I hanging on to this judgment, this opinion of me? So, really, like, don't let any
Mm-hmm.
closet unturned or
Mm-hmm.
corner, right? Because people like, I can't tell you how many times a client has said, like, oh no, my space is good. Oh no, I'm good. And then I'm like, well, can we just peek in here? We just look in this spot. And then it's like, oh, I forgot that was there.
Oh, yeah. And I'm so glad that you have the expertise to help us, Dorena. And all this work that we're talking about doing in our homes to break patterns, I'm gonna shift gears a little bit, but also maybe it's not shifting gears and it all belongs in this conversation. Because a lot of times you hear in spiritual circles the word manifestation,
Hmm.
you know, and if you just believe it, you're gonna attract it and whatnot. But I think when working with you, when we were doing those Tuesday morning manifestation sessions, I realized very quickly that it's deeper. It's deeper than just a word that's magical and things just happen by magic. So, do you mind breaking that down a little bit for us?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of talk out there about manifesting and steps to manifesting. But the one I think the thread I want to pull on the most is you need to feel what it's going to be like, right? When you manifest something, you're really just matching energies. It's
Mm-hmm.
like you're matching your energy to the thing that you desire.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think a lot of times it can be difficult to manifest something when one, we either totally don't believe it's going to happen,
Mm-hmm.
or we don't know what that feeling is like.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's where our home comes in and helps us feel the energy of what we want to attract. So a lot of times I will be like, I had a client the other day and she's like, I want to live in the woods. I'm like, all right. Like, and she lives in a city apartment, right? Like, how can we bring nature into your home? How can
Mm-hmm.
we create through artwork, through different, bringing plants in, like how can we start creating that feeling now? Like,
Mm-hmm.
let's not wait until you get the thing. Let's
Mm-hmm.
start bringing the thing to you.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, it's really, it's creating a feeling
Mm-hmm.
of what you desire and what might be blocking that feeling. And again, using your home, we're gonna subtract and then we're gonna add. We're gonna take away anything blocking and we're gonna add anything that's creating that feeling of what we want. Um, so
And I've,
that's really how I look at it.
yeah, and I've also heard you say before about surrender. I think
Oh,
that was also part of the whole,
mhm.
manifestation process that we went through. So, uh, can you speak a little bit to surrender?
Yeah, it's the attachment piece. It's when we hold on like this, right? We can't accept anything when we're holding on so tight. So it's asking for what you desire and then releasing the outcome of how that might show up.
Yeah.
Um, and that piece I think is for me has been a lifelong, like
Mm-hmm.
really a lifelong process.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and
I
I
think.
often say like I don't know how to let go. And I think that's why I focus so much on decluttering because it's
Mm-hmm.
building a muscle.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm like, how do you just say, I'm going to let go if I get pregnant? I'm going to let go if I find my soulmate
Mm-hmm.
because you want it, right? So it's like
Mm-hmm.
letting go of it piece can be, but again, it's where our house can come in. You want a partner, like, okay, let's make space for them in your house.
Yeah.
Let's make sure your home is set up for welcoming somebody because oftentimes what we say we want, we have a subconscious belief of the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where our home can ferret out what's blocking the manifestation.
Gotcha. Yes. And also, I have another question. You also are a soul coaching practitioner, and I know we did like a soul collage workshop. Can you speak a little bit to how a soul collage is different from a vision board?
In many ways, they're the same. And so it's when we're talking about manifestation, it's seeing it, right? So it's having this clear vision and feeling it. So you can do that through an intention altar, right? Where an intention altar is just different objects symbolizing what you desire. You can do it through your whole home, right? Your entire home can become an intention altar. And you can do it on the old-fashioned vision board. So a vision board is where you're collecting images and you're placing them on poster board. You could do a digital one of those things that you desire. What makes a soul collage a little bit different from a vision board is the process that we go through. It's a much more sacred process, preparing the board, like going through guided journeys of what we want to bring forth and sending that energy into this piece of poster board, right? So it becomes a living, breathing um, altar to place your images on and then after the guided meditations you do start placing these objects or these photographs that you've picked out, and then I encourage people just to like move them around until they feel good, and then look back, stand back, and it's like, oh well, maybe I want this picture to be here or this one to here, and just kind of like until it gets to the point where it settles and you're like, yeah, that feels good.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the point where we go through another guided journey. And in the soul collage, where you place things on the board have meaning. And so
Mm-hmm.
there's this whole um, understanding of when you put something in a particular spot, what it means, if that
And
makes
I,
sense.
and I think that was actually a pretty cool journey of self-discovery for me.
It's all like all this work is all to me is one big it's understanding ourselves better. Um, I had a flood in my house we're probably going, this summer will be 2 years. And
Mm-hmm.
flood meaning 700 gallons of water, and 6 months of mold remediation. And it was my biggest teacher
Mm-hmm.
because I was talking to an astrologer earlier today, and we were talking about different elements in astrology. And so Cancerians have lots of water energy, but there's different forms of water. And for me, my water was frozen. Water and feng shui is associated with your emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And so what happens, like it just, I held on to my emotions and didn't express them for so long that
Mm-hmm.
my house responded in kind. It's like, okay, we need to break this pattern. Here, I'm going to help you. And my dishwasher, the heart of my home,
Mm-hmm.
said, okay, here's your emotions. Let's deal with them now. It was fascinating. We could talk a whole podcast about that alone.
I know we can. And this is very important, Dorina, the self-awareness, the self-discovery, because I really believe that we all have so much potential as a human being, right? With the divine spark is in all of us. But I also think our light gets dim because of whatever we experience, trauma, wounds, the collective, everything that's going on, right? There's so much, and to peel away the layers and to discover who we really are and then align our souls with that light, right? I think the work that you're doing in helping people, I think it's helping to peel away some of those layers and letting that light shine. So I really appreciate you. And I know that your love language is giving gifts, and everyone that's watching and listening, Dorena, loves to do that. And right now, I'm receiving your newsletter where you share so many free tips, and I try to follow them one at a time. And it's through Substack, so it's not even bombarding my email. Are there any other ways that we can connect with you other than your newsletter?
Yeah, so that's a great place. So inside Substack and is House Talk is the name of the my Substack. And so every Friday I publish an article. So that's just full of tips and stories and inspiration. I also have a quiz, and the quiz is super fun. And it will help you identify where in your life most needs attention. And then not only what area of your life needs attention, but then the corresponding area of your home. So it's going to give you a taste of this work. And so that is at spacedoula.com/quiz. Um, or if you go on my website, there's a button for the quiz. I'm actually redoing my website. So that's super fun. But there's a link to the quiz on the website. And that will, and then I have a membership program, as Pooja mentioned, it's called House Magic. And then I do one-on-one work as well.
Yes, you do. And I have tasted a bit of everything, so I'm the lucky one here. But also, is the best way to reach you then through your website? Is that the best way?
Yeah, there's a contact on my website. There are my emails there. So it's Dorena at Space Doula or hello at Space Doula, but Dorena at spacedoula.com is a great place
Right.
reach me.
Well, I can't believe it, Doreen. I could talk to you forever, but our time has just flown by, believe it or not. To me, it feels like a minute, but the whole
I know,
thing
right?
is gone. But thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm sure that those who are watching and listening, if they have questions, please reach out to Dorina. Like I said, she's very giving, and I love to receive all of her free tips as well every Friday. So keep them coming, Dorina, and thank you for being on this show.
Thank you, Pooja.